Oh my God, it's so nice to not talk about a bummer. I'm actually excited. I love extracting value.
When you need some dough, you don't know where to go in this patriarchal capitalist hellscape. Well, here's the sitch, we're gonna help you, sis, because bitches get riches. Bitches get riches. Bitches get riches. Bitches get riches. And so can you.
The Resignation Checklist, 25 sneaky ways to bleed your employer dry before quitting. One night, after I had already been writing Bitches Get Riches for many years, I awoke in a cold sweat, gripped with the sudden realization that I had an incredibly comprehensive resignation checklist, but I had never actually written it down. This was during the height of the post-pandemic Great Recession. Millions of Americans were walking away from their jobs, and I had been selfishly sitting on a list of ways to bleed said companies dry before peacing out and driving off into the sunset. I recognized that this constituted a top 10 anime betrayal. Moshiwake arimasen. Yurushite kure. The thing is, I'd been daydreaming about leaving my job for years. These plans had been a part of me for so long that I kind of forgot that they were plans at all. Like, I don't necessarily notice my own breathing. Why would I notice something equally natural and reflexive like constructing elaborate fantasies about leaving corporate America forever? Planning to quit ahead of time is a great advantage. Not everyone gets it. In most states, people can be fired suddenly for no reason whatsoever. Other people need to leave their jobs abruptly because of absolutely untenable issues like workplace safety or harassment. Those people do not have the luxury of planning a soft landing for themselves. But if you're planning to quit voluntarily, you can do what they cannot. You can be strategic. You know, like light yagami, eating potato chips. And in doing so, you can extract a ton of value back from your employer and or your government before you go. I quit my job and retired forever in 2022. As my final date approached, I systematically went through this list myself. It saved me thousands of dollars. It also prevented a lot of logistical headaches for my future self, which was important because I wanted to set her up with a low-stress post-job lifestyle. Listening to the hold music for the Cobra Continuation Assistance Hotline was not on my retirement vision board. This list was originally published upon my retirement. It jumped immediately into our top 10 most popular list, and it has stayed there pretty much ever since then. Now that we've branched out into audio and video formats, I'm sharing it again along with a few new ideas generated by our amazing patrons and readers. So please enjoy this, my ultimate resignation checklist. Before we get into it, I'm going to confess that my list skews toward white-collared, salaried workers. Now, part of that is the limitations of my own experience. I worked in salaried jobs for the last chunk of my working life, and before that, I was self-employed, which is a fancy way of saying chronically underemployed and very hungry. The last time that I worked hourly shifts was back in college when I was slinging physical copies of Metroid Other M at GameStop. If you bought one of those, I personally apologize for my small role in your trauma. But even if my experience was fresh, I think I still wouldn't have as many tips to share for people who work in more transactional fields like retail and service. Generally, these jobs have fewer legal protections and offer fewer exploitable benefits for their employees. And the reasons for this are really complex, but they summarize down nicely into one word, which is classism. I want you all to remember that unskilled labor is a classist myth, and whether you make 4 figures or 6 figures, we are all on the same team. The billionaire class is the fisherman, everyone else is just crabs in the bucket. To refocus human dignity at the center of a new workplace culture, workers need to unite and work together to demand change. Our enemies, the men who made themselves wealthy by exploiting others, are never going to have an Ebenezer moment where they suddenly decide to stop acting evil. We have a suggested list for further reading on this topic in the print version of this guide, which you can find at bitchesgetriches.com. Resignation Checklist. Choose the right time to quit. A couple of astute bitchlings in our comments section for the original article pointed out something really important which a lot of people might not realize. It used to be standard practice for employees to give 2 weeks' notice before leaving their job. The expectation was that you would use your last 2 weeks to wrap up all of your duties and let your employers begin the search for a replacement for your role. However, it has become increasingly common for businesses to ask you to leave immediately once you have given notice. So keep in mind throughout this section, if you decide to give advance notice, don't tell your employer until you are actually ready to go. Anticipate that you may be physically walked out of the building that very day. If this happens to you, yes, you can apply to collect unemployment for the extra weeks between the date that you were let go and the date that you had actually planned to leave. It's just a lot of hassle for one paycheck, and I would love to see you avoid it. I shouldn't even get into this, but this is a perfect example of why I think giving notice is a ridiculously one-sided and outdated expectation that just needs to die. If companies want 2 weeks notice that I plan to leave, they can give me 2 weeks notice that they plan to lay me off or lay my team members off. Unless I get the same courtesy, it benefits me in no way to reveal my intentions, especially when they're likely to respond with the humiliating discourtesy of walking me out under guard like I'm a deranged criminal as thanks. That is a whole nother rant for a whole nother day. Here's how to time your departure perfectly. Number 1. Plan to quit in the first few days of a new month to extend your healthcare coverage for an extra month. Employer-sponsored healthcare benefits are one of my least favorite features of this timeline, but that is all the more reason to exploit them wherever we can. At most companies, your healthcare benefits remain active through your last month of employment. For example, if you quit on January 2nd, you have 29 days before you need to go out and get a new plan. But if you quit on January 27th, you only have 4 days. For that reason, I highly recommend quitting in the first few days of a month. It saves you money and buys you extra time. But do your homework first, because although that's what's most common, it's not the only possibility. Some businesses offer a flat 4-week continuation, and some stop cold on your last day. Fucking bastards. Number 2. Plan to quit after January to collect a full year's paid vacation time. If you get paid vacation time and you live in a state that considers vacation time to be wages, you're in luck. If you quit after January 1st, you will get a fat final paycheck with all of those unused vacation days for the entire year. Unfortunately, our useless representatives don't set this policy at the federal level, so you need to actually go look up your state's laws to know if this one applies to you. In the print version of this article, there is a handy chart where you can look your state up. Number 3, cover an employment gap by quitting just after the new year. Here's another good reason to quit early in the year. It is much easier to hide an employment gap if you quit in the new year. Now, employment gaps should be normal. For those of you who will one day sit in an interviewer's chair, I beg you, don't ask people to explain gaps. The company does not need an explanation for how a candidate spent their private lives when they weren't even employed there. It is almost always some incredibly personal, usually bummer shit like caregiving or illness or chronic unemployment. It is neither germane nor pleasant to talk about. But that said, gaps are still viewed as red flags by many hiring managers. You can more effectively disguise a gap by listing your employment on your resume by year without accounting for the month. So if you leave early in the year, say January, you're basically buying yourself another 11 months if they're not looking too closely. Which they're probably not. They're probably AI. Who cares? Number 4, plan to quit only after getting the most out of your benefits. In my final corporate job, I got an annual bonus. It came out every year during the last week of March. Don't you just find it so weird and incredibly coincidental that I left my job in the first week of April? If you have good benefits, make the most out of them before you leave your job. Do you get an annual or quarterly bonus? Make your exit after that delicious extra money lands in your account. Are you planning for children? If so, suck their parental leave dry before you go. If you're a lady, you've already preemptively been punished for it in the hiring process, so you might as well go for it. Are you considering getting a new degree? If your company offers tuition reimbursement, Make use of that before you bounce. Do you need specialized medical care, like gender transition support or fertility treatments? Those can be extraordinarily expensive and not every plan includes them. So if you have access to them now, use them before you go. Do you get any other cool perks? I'm thinking employee discounts, gym memberships, home office stipends, vehicle usage reimbursements, personal development budgets, free tickets to sponsored events. Those are sweet perks, so vacuum that free money up and read your employee handbook, because sometimes I swear these perks are intentionally under-advertised. My last employer was the corporate sponsor for our local aquarium, and by doing so, they granted all of their employees free admission for life. And I only knew about that from poring over the handbook looking for information on a completely different topic. So you better believe, before I quit, I went and peeped some free fish. Number 5, use every single sick day and vacation day that won't be paid out. I'm super lucky. My state compels companies to pay out unused vacation time. And I had a good boss, so I didn't have to lie about how I used my sick leave. I could say, I need a few mental health days, and he would approve it, no questions asked. If you are not that lucky and you can't look forward to getting that money back, use those sick days and vacation days up. Use them with wanton brutality. If I worked for a crappy company in a crappy state, I would feel no shame whatsoever in faking sick or taking random staycation days. Side note, what's the best fake sickness ever? What is the best way to fake sick? I have devoted many shower thoughts to this question, and I believe I have a definitive answer. In my opinion, the easiest way to fake sick for a good chunk of time without straining your acting abilities is to announce that you have scheduled a minor surgery. Specifically, I will suggest a pilonidal cyst excision. Here's why it's perfect. People don't pry once they learn that it is a problem somewhere within 6 inches of your bunghole. And getting people to avoid asking questions does so much of the heavy lifting of lying for you. The condition is common and it's treatable. Pretending to have it does not diminish the experiences of people who actually have it. You're not faking having cancer. It is relatively minor. You're not going to make people worry about you. Since it's on your tailbone, the treatment for it is that you really can't do anything but lay on your stomach for a couple of weeks. You can't sit and you can't stand. This would allow you to get out of almost any kind of work. You don't have to fake coughing or fatigue. There is no advanced acting skills required. And you can always mention a ripped stitch or an infection in order to prolong your paid time off. It's the perfect crime. You're welcome. For the sake of moral clarity, let me add, since I originally published this tangent in 2022, one person who had pilonidal cysts told me that it was unethical, and about 19 others told me that it was awesome. This is the golden ratio for advice givers as far as I'm concerned. I'll take it. Next section in our resignation checklist. Get the most out of your existing health care. Number 6, schedule your annual physical. Thanks to the Affordable Care Act, lots of routine preventative medical procedures are now free.
Thanks, Obama.
Actually, it's more accurate to say that you have already paid for them. So if you don't use it, you're wasting the money that you have already spent on it when you paid your first insurance premium. The first and most critical step is to schedule an annual physical exam with your general practitioner. Do it to renew outstanding prescriptions, address any health concerns, and avoid unpleasant surprises while you're transitioning between healthcare plans. Number 7, get your vaccinations, including your annual flu shot. I'm not a doctor, but I've watched a lot of Scrubs, so I've got this. Everyone's lifestyles, risks, and needs are different. So talk to your doctor, you dirty step skipper. But in general, adults need the following vaccines: You need your COVID-19 vaccine and booster every year. You need your seasonal flu shot every year to prevent influenza. You need a Tdap booster every 10 years to prevent tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis. You might need it more often than that if you're hanging out with babies, I forget. HPV, you need that as a series to prevent genital warts and cancers. You might have to kind of fight for it if you're over the age of 26, but fight that fight, it's worth it. And you may need a few on top of that if you are over 50, if you're pregnant, if you're working in healthcare, if you're traveling internationally, if you missed critical vaccines during childhood, or if you live near anti-vaxxers who are fixing to bring back the classics. Piggy and I have a dear friend who almost died in their 20s from regular old influenza. The flu is not just a bad cold, it is a serious disease that claims tens of thousands of lives every year in America. And we were ferociously passionate about this even before the pandemic made it all trendy. So please get your shots before you need them. Number 8, have your teeth cleaned, x-rayed, and repaired as needed. Tooth pain is proof that God exists and he hates you. I barely remember orientation week of college because I was in so much pain from a tooth abscess. I even met my future co-blogger during this time. Piggy thought I was preppy when she met me. Is that her bad judgment or my good Vicodin? You decide. I see here that Piggy has left an editor's note. Piggy here to set the record straight. Bitch showed up to move-in day in an A-line skirt and kitten heels. What the hell was I supposed to think? Okay, well, you know what? They were not kitten heels. They were 2.5-inch mules, not kitten heels. Get that right. I have low arches and an indomitable spirit. I used to say flats are for quitters, and I've stopped saying it, but I'll never stop thinking it. Most plans cover 1 to 2 annual cleanings and a set of x-rays every year. If you have a cavity or something more serious, it's better to have it taken care of now. You do not want to be interviewing for a new job with a toothache so bad that you cannot think straight. I'm going to slip in one last note here. I need to write about this in the future, but I want you to be aware of the fact that there's a growing number of scammy dental offices who bilk customers and their insurance plans by suggesting treatments that they don't really need. The most popular one that I've heard about a lot is a deep cleaning or a deep pocket cleaning that insurance mysteriously refuses to cover. So just be aware of that. Get a second opinion if something doesn't sound right, and choose your dentist based on great reviews from other patients, and don't go with the ones who send out mailers, direct mail. If you do need a cavity filled, your dentist should sit down with you and show it to you on your x-rays. You can see the shadow very easily for yourself. And trust dentists who take a long-term approach. I have really shitty enamel and I have lots of baby cavities. My dentist monitors their growth year over year, and he doesn't take any action to fill them until it actually becomes necessary. And with twice annual cleanings, under his watchful eye, none of them have actually grown at all. So I have not had any new fillings in many years. I love my dentist and I want everyone to love their dentists. Number 9, get new glasses and/or contact lenses. Who's wearing their dailies like monthlies? Couldn't be me. It is. It's me. Most insurance plans cover an annual eye exam plus a set amount reimbursed for new lenses every year and new frames every other year. Again, this is stuff that you've already paid for. When you switch to a new insurance plan, you can get even more. So get a fresh prescription now. If you don't need anything, use your imagination. Get a second pair, get higher quality contacts, get prescription sunglasses. Just get something. Why waste it? Number 10, stockpile extras of your most necessary prescriptions. If you're leaving your job voluntarily, hopefully you already have a plan to move on to a new insurance provider. But if that plan falls through, you don't want to be without the medications that you need most. You may need extra time to find a new provider if your current doctors don't take your new insurance. I remember running out of birth control pills during a job transition, and let me tell you, that is not an ideal time to experiment with one's hormones. I'd been on the same pill for a really, really long time, so when I stopped abruptly, my body became 1,000% convinced that it was pregnant, and not regular person pregnant, Sitcom, cliche, pregnant. I forced my partner to walk in the snow to a convenience store after midnight for poofy styled Cheetos because the idea of not having them basically brought me to tears. So don't do that. If your doctor's cool, ask if they can write you a prescription for a longer period of time. If they aren't, or if your medication is a controlled substance, so they can't, just be savvy and find a way to stock up on extras whatever way you have to, as long as you're not endangering yourself. Number 11, pursue any necessary medical diagnoses before you quit. If you have a niggling feeling that your weird mole has become a weird mole, it's better to get it looked at now. You don't have to solve every issue within your body. It's enough to seek the clarity of a diagnosis and to familiarize yourself with treatment plans. When you start your next job, you will likely be offered tiers of healthcare plans. If you know you have a condition that requires expensive procedures like surgery or physical therapy, you can strategically choose a higher tier, at least initially, to offset that damage. My only caveat here is mental health. I actually wouldn't recommend starting therapy just before quitting your job, just because finding a good therapist and building a relationship with them is such hard work, and I would hate to see you throw that work away because your therapist doesn't accept your new insurance plan. So get situated on a new plan first, but you know you best, so trust your own judgment about whatever it is that you think you need. Next section of our resignation checklist, optimize your finances. Number 12, get independent logins to your company-sponsored financial accounts. My final employer had an intranet that connected me seamlessly through a VPN network to all of the horribly designed benefits portals. Seriously, I would like to know who is designing the UX for these sites. Is it Clippy? Clippy, you bastard. Once I left the company, I needed external links and the passwords to go with them. You don't want to exit with a hearty middle finger only to come crawling back 6 months later for help getting your 401k rolled over. Number 13, max out your company's 401k matching. Oh, and by the way, if you are on a 403b, the principle for this is pretty much the same. If your employer offers 401k matching, make the most out of that benefit while you can. There is a reason that it comes super early in our suggested financial order of operations guide. It's about as close to free money as it gets. It's going to grow throughout your lifetime, and the sooner you start, the better those returns will be. So always aim at bare minimum to max out that company match. At time of writing, I had to update this. People under 50 can contribute $23,500 per year to their 401ks. So if you're trying to maximize your contributions into this tax-advantaged retirement account, you would put $19.50 per month into it. Hooey. That'd buy about 14 eggs in this economy. Number 14. Front load your 401k contributions. If you know that you're quitting your job early to midway through the year, you can consider a strategy called front loading your 401k. This basically means depositing larger payments at the start of the year instead of a steady drip throughout the year. So since I left my job in April, I would have had to set my monthly 401k contribution to $5,875 to make up for the whole year, which is insane. I obviously did not do that, but I did get as close as I comfortably could. If you can afford it, front loading is a pretty good idea. It builds your wealth faster by giving you the whole year to earn interest. It also lets you be sneaky and take more of your soon-to-be ex-employer's money and run. But for those reasons, not all matching plans honor front-loading. So if maxing out the employer match is your only reason for considering front-loading, check your plan details before you commit to this strategy, because not all plans support what's called true-up matching, which is what you would need to accomplish this. If you're unclear, call your plan's administrator and just ask them. They will have reps who can tell you directly in plain English, yes or no. If they're a big external company like a Fidelity, you really don't have to worry about your employer getting wind that you asked these kinds of questions. I promise they are too big to moonlight as low-level snitches for all of their clients. Number 15, check your vesting schedule on extra money like retirement matching, bonuses, or stock options. Perks like these have become increasingly rare in the last 20 years, but I suspect that they will see a resurgence in popularity if labor continues to strengthen. Vesting can be a little confusing. Luckily, we did a deep dive into how vested funds work. You can read that in the article we have linked in the print version of this article. It's called Can I Quit with Unvested Funds or Am I Walking Away from Too Much Money? The TLDR is that some financial benefits don't truly become yours until you have worked at the company for an arbitrary amount of time. So before you quit, you need to know if the money that appears to be yours will actually go poof because you were 3 months shy of its vestment date. Not that you asked, but my opinion on deferred compensation is that it's denied compensation. I will never count on vesting funds because I want the psychological freedom to walk away from jobs that don't work for me. Leaving money on the table causes me psychic damage, and they absolutely know it. Number 16, secure loans for major purchases now. Some years back, I closed on my first house the same week that I started a brand new job. And my bank was surprisingly chill about it. They accepted a copy of my formal offer letter as proof of income. If I were trying to do that now, I don't know that it would be quite that easy. Inflation and interest rates are rising. Money won't shoot out of the banks quite like they did in the good old days, like a greased pig on a slip and slide. So if you're thinking about major purchases like a home, a car, or an educational degree, secure the loans for those things before you quit your job. There is an exception. If you expect a large pay bump in your next role, then hold off. You may qualify with more lenders and better terms with a higher income. Please hold while I space out for a second, thinking about how dystopian it is that we treat rich people as inherently more deserving of discounts than poor people. I'm back. There were so many stars where I went. The next section of our resignation checklist, get the data you will need in the future. Number 17, make personal copies of critical files. Make sure that you walk away with everything you need to secure another job in the future. Some companies frown on you making personal copies of your work, and some outright forbid it, but personally, I take what I want, and I do not even bother to ask for permission. That's because I worked as a graphic designer. It would have been impossible for me to demonstrate my skills without examples of my past work. So anytime I make something great for any employer, it goes right into my password-protected, hidden from search engines personal portfolio. And if it contained proprietary information, I redacted it or replaced key parts with lorem ipsum text before using it. You are all smart people. I think you know the difference between some portfolio pieces or supportive analytics reports and trade secrets that will send your cheeks clapping all the way to federal prison. Make good choices. Number 18, copy important emails to your personal account. Whenever I get a really important email, I put it into a folder called Useful. And when I'm ready to leave a job, I download those emails from the Useful folder and forward them to my personal address. This is especially important if you are leaving your employer on bad terms. We pray at the Holy Church of document everything. If you have been harassed or treated badly, make sure your future self has the proof that they need to pursue justice. The print version of this article links to a guide with more specific steps to take if you find yourself in this situation. It is called Sexual Harassment: How to Identify and Fight It in the Workplace. Number 19, switch any account logins that use your work email address. Your work email will likely be deleted or passed on to someone else. So check your password manager and look for any non-work related accounts linked to it and just switch them over. It's going to be a lot harder, maybe even impossible to do it after you've lost access to your work email forever. Next section of the resignation checklist, solidify relationships. Number 20, save coworkers you like. I find LinkedIn is the easiest way to stay in touch on a neutral professional level. So whenever I leave a job, I invite everyone to add me as part of my final farewell email. If you found someone at work who is more like a friend, add them on whatever social platforms you actually use. Once you've announced your impending departure, you can ask for their personal phone numbers or emails. Just don't ask too early in case somebody has loose lips. Number 21, delete coworkers you hate. When I announced my impending retirement on my private Instagram, I got a lot of positive comments from friends and acquaintances, but I also got one very snarky comment from a former manager who I completely forgot was following me. Aw, just when I was about to call you about a job. This dude and I have not spoken in years, and when I was in his department, he criminally underpaid me based on my age and my gender. He figured out that bright-eyed recent college grads would work tirelessly exactly as directed for half the pay of more senior employees. He climbed his sweaty ass up the ladder by stealing credit for their achievements. So no. I would rather rub sand up my own ass crack for 40 hours every week than work for him again. So I deleted him. It is the perfect time to clean house. You will be so much happier if these tools are not living rent-free in your feeds. Number 22, ask for LinkedIn recommendations. For a variety of reasons, professional references just don't carry the weight in the hiring process that they once did, which is kind of a shame because I do think they're very illuminating, and it's also a pretty great way to screen out high purity wackadoos. One of my core strengths in the workplace was building trust and relationships, so I need some other way to express that people like me and enjoy working with me. Public LinkedIn recommendations have been great for this reason. Whenever I leave a job, I usually ask a couple of people to write one for me. Since it lives on my profile, future recruiters can see what I'm like to work with before they ever interview me. I only ask people who I know I can trust and in a very clear, no pressure way. And I try to include a spread of coworkers, managers, and mentors to kind of showcase my social adaptability. So try that. The final section in our resignation checklist, miscellaneous. Number 23, steal office supplies. I worked remotely most days before the pandemic started. So by the time I left, I hadn't been in the office in person for over a year. I lost all sense of what even was in my desk drawers anymore. Low-tier pens, awkward-sized notebooks, maybe a cardigan at the most, but nothing that I missed. So I never went back. Oh my God. I just considered, what if I left snacks in my desk? They may have become so covered in mold that they became technically, legally alive. Did they have to send in a team in hazmat suits to establish diplomatic relations with them? What was I saying? Regardless, I sanctioned the theft of office supplies. You gave them the best years of your life, so plunder them of their precious Post-it notes and their ugly team t-shirts left over from last year's fundraiser because you need something to paint in. Personally, my modus operandi is mugs. I steal a mug from my last workplace and use it with me in the next one. Drinking from it reminds me of all of the lessons I have learned in the past. In fact, I am actually drinking out of a stolen company mug right now. As you can see, there's a team photo on this one, and I actually am in the photo, but I already knew that I wanted to leave. I was already planning my escape from this company. So the second that the photographer was about to take the photo, I just stepped behind someone else. I refused to be documented as being a part of this.
And the aptly named Sir not appearing in this film.
It brings me joy. This is my favorite possession. Number 24, take time off for yourself. This one is a luxury. It shouldn't be, but it is, because you need money and time and support to do it properly. So if you can, please consider taking a few days or weeks off to enjoy your autonomous, uncommodified self. For one reason or another, I was never able to take time off between jobs. I always had to just rush into the next thing. And now that I'm at the end of my career, I realize how much I regret letting that happen, because everyone deserves time to rest and reflect after a major life change and to prepare for what comes next. And I robbed my past self by not finding a way to make that happen. Number 25, go out as a legend. I don't know what it is. Maybe I just love a dramatic ending, but I often find myself honoring the ends of eras with a bit of harmless devilry. When my first beloved dormitory was sold, I said goodbye to the building by instigating a massive multi-floor water gun brawl. My memory is awful. I have a very bad brain, but I will never forget streaking down her hallways and coursing up her staircases with my fingers blistering from the cheap pump action knockoff super soakers that we had found for $1 in Chinatown. It was the first place I had lived where I truly felt that I belonged, and it was the send-off that she deserved before being torn down to the studs to make apartments for millionaires. This spirit has carried through in my jobs as well. The last time that I quit a job, not my final job, but the one before that, it was to escape a truly terrible workplace. It was toxic and oppressive with an omnipresent tension in the air. And there were really good people on my team, and I hated to leave them behind to suffer without me. And I wanted to make sure that I left like a legend. So I set off 2 figurative bombs. First, I detonated an immediate accountability bomb. I had not been the victim of the racism, the nepotism, the bullying, the sexism, the ableism, but I had seen it happening to others. And it was happening to people who had families and obligations that made it difficult for them to speak up or walk away as easily as I was. So I did my best to speak for them. And I left a molten hot dossier with HR and the company's leadership. And my CMO left my exit interview feeling humiliated by the way that I characterized my time there. To which I say, "Good, Barbara. Good for you. You should feel humiliated. That's the correct emotion to be having. You did it." Second, I detonated a time-delayed comedy bomb. I hid photos of hairless cats shellacked in GeoCities era sparkle GIFs throughout our team's project folders. Each and every one was annotated in lime green Comic Sans font with like different callbacks and inside jokes. My team was still finding them months after I left, and they would send me texts that they were just howling with laughter when they would find one in a hidden layer of some company artwork or as the device wallpaper on some machine that hadn't been booted up since, months previously. I felt truly gutted to leave the good, kind people on my team behind. I knew that despite my best struggles, the leadership wasn't going to do a damn thing to make real change. It made me feel so powerless. So leaving subversive little gifts of laughter felt like my way to stay connected to them and to give them hope that they would soon escape too, which they all did in their own time. For the rest, I channeled that anguish into words, first for my own catharsis, and then really hoping that I could guide others to be more effective change makers than I was. I teamed up with Piggy, whose different experience somehow brought her to the exact same place in life, and eventually we published everything. And that is the blog that you're reading today. That's Bitches Get Riches, and that is the calling that I continue to pursue even into retirement. That's really why my final piece of advice is to go out like a legend. I think we've been far too conditioned to hide our true selves while at work and to act like perfect automatons. Whether quitting your job leaves you feeling sad or angry or conflicted or joyful, find a way to let those feelings live in the way that you choose to quit. Finally, a resource for people who want to quit but can't. So that's the end of my checklist. For the purposes of today's discussion, I have assumed that you have already firmly decided to quit. I don't question your reasons. I'm sure they're good. But some of you aren't there yet. You hate your current situation and you wish you could quit, but you don't think you can. So you're spending a lot of time daydreaming about how awesome quitting would feel. And you're reading articles like these as the sickos guy, getting secondhand enjoyment, knowing that somewhere out there, other people are doing the thing that you desperately want to do. If I've just accurately described you, allow me to suggest our burnout workshop. We wrote it for people who feel desperately unhappy, trapped by their current situations, and paralyzed to do anything about it. In this course, you get a movie-length video that you can watch and rewatch at your own pace, plus a 75-page workbook. Actually, I think it's up to 80 now. And it is crammed with exercises and personality tests and guided questions and tips and resources and all sorts of great stuff. If you're not sure whether quitting your job is the right thing for you to do, I guarantee you will get clarity and peace of mind on that question. And you will leave with excellent strategies for improved mental health, regardless of whether you ultimately decide to stay or to leave. Anything else on your resignation checklist? When we first published this guide in 2022, we got a ton of fantastic reader suggestions in the comments. For example, French Girl, ooh la la, pointed out that you should use up any money in your FSA. This is a reflection of my own blind spot. I have only ever had HSAs, not FSAs, but French Girl is totally right. If you have an FSA, that money is use it or lose it. You can spend it on any eligible medical expense, and that includes stuff like sunscreen and ibuprofen and tampons. So go on, fulfill your destiny to become a hygiene prepper. For people who work in manufacturing environments, Laura had a great tip to use your full work-sponsored allowance for clothing, shoes, safety gear, or any tools that would remain your personal property. This is a great tip because you can always use that stuff. This weekend, I'm pulling all of the busted up old insulation out of my attic myself. And I really wish I had some like heavy duty overalls and steel-toed boots and eye protection and shit. As it is, I will be going in with my classic min-max strategy for intense physical labor, which is slutty shorts, girl talk, and Adderall. These are just two among many great ideas from our readers, so please go peruse those comments for even more ideas. We are always looking for more, especially for hourly workers and people who are in very unique industries. So if you have thoughts, please come on over and add them. If this resignation checklist was helpful to you, the best way that you can tell us is by supporting our work. Writers, online, being paid. Shocking. Jess and I are seeking fair compensation for our writing, so if you liked this and you would like to see more, get into our whole Patreon situation or go check out our burnout course, which goes so much deeper than this article ever could. And of course, we want to hear your quitting stories. Nothing makes me happier, nothing brings me more vicarious joy than hearing about other people walking away from jobs that suck their souls clean out of their bodies. I truly can't get enough of it. So if you followed the steps on this checklist and they helped you, please hit me. Tell me about it in the comments. It's going to make my day, I swear. All right, that's all for now. Happy quitting and bitches out. Okay, I really buried the lead on this one. I've actually had a special guest for this whole recording. Cha-cha! She is just a little baby. She is 9 weeks old, and she will be staying with us until she is old enough to get spayed, and then she'll get adopted right away because look at her. Look at how cute she is. Quit your job. Quit your job. Quit your job and just have animals. You're being a good girl. A very good girl. Oh my goodness, look at you. Quit your job. Guillotine the billionaires. Bitches out.